News is all around us, online, in print, and on TV, and it's the most common way that people learn about the world. In the 21st century, there is more and more scrutiny about news being inaccurate, being fake news, or it having a skewed perspective. This is a really fascinating starting point when using news as stimulus. But more so is the fact that there are millions upon millions of news stories that have been written since journalism came about. Imagine every single article, in every single medium, in every single location, on every day for the last 300 years or so. Now that is a lot of inspiration for devising. So you have a news article or a story as a starting point. Here are some activities to get cracking on with. Recreate the story with a twist. Our first and most obvious choice with a news article is to recreate the story in a theatrical form. Plot out the timeline of events and then stage them. However, you can have a lot of creative fun with style and form here. You could start by considering the story naturalistically, or you can recreate it as something very different. You could draw inspiration from a different genre here. The article I'm going to use as an example is a story about Jeff Bezos, the American businessman, and his net worth passing $200 billion. I could make my piece a naturalistic story about his life, or I could recreate it with a twist. I could use the story to make a theatrical thriller about his famous divorce. I could create a fly-on-the-wall comedy a la the TV show The Office or Modern Family. I could create a comic book style story where he becomes a superhero, like Bruce Wayne in the Batman story. By playing with genre and form, you're opening up all kinds of creative possibilities, all from a simple news story. The writer. The news story will have been written by someone, a journalist most probably. An idea is to pursue their story, the story of the journalist. Why did they write this story? Are they personally close to it? Or have they written similar articles about the same subject? There are many films about journalists, especially investigative journalism. Two recent examples are The Post and Spotlight. Explore the writer of the story, which is almost like the story behind the story itself. By doing this, you're expanding the number of stories that you use by fleshing out the narrative and the characters. Different versions. Each news platform has a particular style. So using your original article, what are the different versions of it? If it was in a magazine, how did a newspaper report on it? How did the TV news report on it? If it was in a tabloid newspaper, how did a broadsheet newspaper report on the same story? And interestingly, what are the differences? Are the facts different? Is the tone of the article different? A newspaper like The Guardian may report on someone like Jeff Bezos as a harmful, dangerous, or greedy individual. A fashion magazine may be more complimentary and focus on his trendy fashion style. A business magazine or newspaper may talk about his business and his wealth with admiration and respect. Compile all the different versions of the same story from as many different sources and platforms as possible. Compare, analyse, and use the most interesting differences as a starting point for drama. Characters in the story. Drama and storytelling are based on character. So who are the characters in your news story, and who can you focus on when bringing this article to life? With my example, I could have Jeff Bezos as the main protagonist in the story. Then I could open up a whole sphere of other options. I could look at his ex-wife or his children. I could look at other high-up executives in his companies. I can explore further and look at the story of one of his employees in one of his warehouses. The play Wishlist by Catherine Soper explores a similar story to this very well. I could go further and look at the character who purchases something from one of his companies. Perhaps we can even escape human characters. What about Jeff Bezos' pets? They're characters in his story. What about inanimate objects in his life? His bed or his mobile phone? We can be creative and playful in bringing to life all the pieces of our protagonist's life. Someone reading the story. Rather than looking at the characters in the story itself, what about looking at the life of someone who reads the story and it affects them in some way? In my example, imagine someone reading this article on Jeff Bezos' wealth and deciding to join a protest about the ethics of his companies. Equally, imagine someone reading this article and being inspired to create something, a young entrepreneur or inventor. If you place the character reading the story at the start of the piece can explore how it affects their life and what they go on to do. The article can be a catalyst for action that plays out in the piece. Two plays that come to mind here that tread similar territory are Chimerica by Lucy Kirkwood and Parliament Square by James Fritz. Photojournalists. Every news story will incorporate visual media in some way, be it photography or video. Consider all the thousands of photojournalists and videographers around the world right now capturing media for news platforms. Imagine their stories. What happens behind the lens? Does your stimulus article have a photo or a video with it? What's the story of the person that captured that? Have a think about all the places that they've been, what they've seen, what they've survived. Using my Jeff Bezos example, I'm imagining a famous, successful photographer being paid to photograph him. Who else have they photographed? Celebrities? Royalty? Politicians? What stories do they have to tell? This idea is very much inspired by the play Borders by Henry Naylor, a really interesting play about two worlds colliding around photojournalism. Changing the medium. This is an extension of a previous idea where we looked for different versions of the same story. Imagine that you can't find different versions of the same story in different publications or on different platforms. Well, make your own. So if I have an article on Jeff Bezos, what can I do with that? I could make it an undercover investigation piece. I could make it a showbiz gossip column. I could change the viewpoint of the writer of the article. Do they see him as good or bad? Is this a positive, excited, or comedic article? Or is this a damning attack on corporate greed? Try staging all the different versions of the same story told from different news outlets. And there we go. There's 7 activities to use on your stimulus of a news story. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you, please give it a like. Do check out these other videos and subscribe. And if you want to support what I do on the channel, you can click on the link in the video description. All the best.